Thank you, Jacob. It's wonderful to see you. Welcome to JST Talks on TvAbraham. And we're colleagues, so we can just head straight to the...
No, you're my boss.
Oh, I am? Okay. Thank you for saying that. It's really a pleasure working with you. I've learned a lot from you about the world of journalism, which is new to me, but exciting new world. But let's just start with the news of the day. Today is September 11th, the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Any reflections for what this means for the U.S. now, almost a quarter century later?
Well, President Trump will be speaking in New York at a 9/11 ceremony today. And it will be interesting to see if he delivers a speech that is different in tone and substance from the one that he gave from the Oval Office last night.
Oh.
Last night, he denounced the radical left and essentially indicated that he would pursue countermeasures, whatever those might be. Now, today, 9/11 has traditionally been a moment in which presidents seek to get the country to unite and talk about the tragedy and about the difficulties that we confront abroad, particularly in the Middle East.
Right.
Now, we know that 9/11 was the greatest attack on the United States domestically since December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor took place. This was a calculated plot to try and knock out vital parts of America. It wasn't just the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center that was targeted, but also here in Washington, D.C. The Pentagon was hit by an airplane, and I believe that they were trying to head for either the Capitol or the White House as well. Right. So, which would have been an even more devastating blow to the United States. 9/11, in retrospect, also had cataclysmic effects upon the United States. Because the George W. Bush administration did not just attack Afghanistan, but it went on to pursue a war in Iraq. And it is clear in retrospect that we should have focused solely on Afghanistan, that the war in Iraq turned into a debacle, and it has unmoored the United States domestically as well, because I think that it is responsible for the rise of Donald Trump and the collapse of the Republican foreign policy establishment.
Okay. That's
a mouthful, a lot. I realize. But I just wanted to give you a quick tour de horizon.
Well, that's a great tour de horizon. It was certainly an act of terrorism. And we had apparently, an act of domestic terrorism yesterday as well. The other big news that no doubt President Trump's speech was alluding to in the Oval Office that you mentioned was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And we don't know yet. Here we are the next day, but it was shocking. And again, what are your reflections? What is this signaling to the U.S. public right now?
It is hard not to worry. There are a number of people who believe that the U.S. may even be on the precipice of some kind of civil war. Newt Gingrich was just quoted as calling it a cultural civil war.
Oh,
and he said...
Cultural civil war.
Well, he said that during the Obama presidency and the Biden presidency, the right felt stigmatized and marginalized. Now he says the left feels the same way, and he said how it will all sort itself out, we don't know. Now, I think President Trump made a mistake last night in targeting what he called the radical left for this assassination of Charlie Kirk, because we don't know who did it.
Right.
And it does look, I'm not an expert, but it does suggest the distance, the way the guy got away. Maybe it was a professional hit job. Who is responsible, we don't know.
We don't know.
The problem is that America now, and this takes us back to 9/11, is steeped in conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And 9/11, as you know, some people blamed it on the Mossad.
Yeah.
They concocted all kinds of wild conspiracy theories. And unfortunately, with the rise of social media in the United States, there's wild speculation now taking place about what was happening during this Charlie Kirk. There are even people claiming that there were people in the audience, because they touched their baseball cap like this, were giving signals to a shooter. I mean, America, bluntly put, is in a perilous place right now.
Right. So is there a role now for journalists in the U.S. to tamp down the rhetoric? I mean, we don't know who did it. We do know that the media that people consume is ever more partisan. Most of the media, there are limited exceptions, of course, on the other side, but is strongly anti-Trump and uses a lot of metaphors and analogies to all kinds of scary totalitarian things, and then we see a rise in political violence. Are the two, is the journalistic rhetoric related to the political violence in your view?
That's a difficult question. It's sort of a chicken and the egg question. I mean, you had the assassination of that Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota.
Right.
So there is violence on both sides.
Yes.
There is, can we call much of the media really journalism, or is it profit-oriented sensationalism? That may take us back
to
people
writing in journals.
Right, but that may take us back to the original incarnation of American journalism.
Okay.
Which this, very muted and calm and bipartisan journalism was a product of the Cold War, the whole Walter Cronkite model.
Right.
American journalism wasn't like that before. Colonel Robert McCormick, who owned the Chicago Tribune, was a rabid opponent of Franklin Roosevelt. They portrayed Roosevelt in the conservative press as a would-be dictator.
Right.
So there's a long tradition in the American press on either side of targeting public figures, of vilification, smears. I don't want to get too, but there's also Walter Winchell, who you may remember.
Of course.
You have to be ancient to remember who Walter Winchell was. But look, there are a lot
I remember him by reputation.
Right. There have been a lot of smear artists in American journalism. Right. So I think in many ways, America has reverted more closely to what it was, that maybe this Cold War period was an aberration.
Here's another model for you. Maybe what you consider an aberration of the Cold War period was left-of-center journalism, but we were all comfortable with it. And all those people were Democrats, and some of them were not so far from the smear artists, but we just accepted it, and now... and then finally, when the right strikes back and the conservative have their own media, now we consider it terrible. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's not an uninteresting proposal, because in 1955, William F. Buckley established the National Review, which then was outside of the mainstream.
Right.
And let's face it, the liberal establishment was dominated and attacked the National Review.
Right.
Now the National Review has become part of the establishment.
Right.
So it's an interesting dilemma for conservatives as well nowadays, because they are in power. They do control all branches of government.
Yes.
And what William F. Buckley was espousing has now become the mainstream for conservatives.
Right. So let's explore for a minute some of those traditional conservatives, many of whom are not Trump supporters, and they're very vocal about it. People in the National Review, people in this publication called The Bulwark, right? What are they thinking? Would they be happier with a Democratic president than a President Trump? They call themselves conservatives. They identify as conservatives in policy ways, but when it comes to supporting a president who is not of their stream of the conservative movement, they're super critical. Are they, in effect, aligning themselves with Democrats? Because it's either or. I mean, there's not like a third party here.
It depends who you're talking about. The neoconservatives.
Yes.
Who in the 1970s were...
You've written about them very succinctly.
Were lapsed Democrats, pro-Israel.
Right.
They have morphed back. They are Bill
Democrats
Kristol and the other. They're
in effect Democrats now.
Yes, I wouldn't say that they feel comfortable with. Certainly, they have they're not comfortable with the left wing of the Democratic Party.
No.
But so they want to shape the Democratic Party, push it in their own image.
Right.
That's Bill Kristol,
Yes.
David Frum, and others.
Right.
Though Frum, I think, is still a registered Republican. Then you get to the National Review, which is a more traditional.
Yes.
That's sort of Herbert Hoover conservatism.
Yeah.
Warren Harding.
Yeah.
Not the radicalism
No.
that Trump espouses. Not quite the populism. Though there's some people at NR who are sympathetic to Trump. I think the mission of the National Review is to try and push Trump on policies. They're not going to break with Trump.
No.
The Wall Street Journal, interestingly, too, is critical of Trump on tariffs.
Yes. On other things as well.
So it's a traditional, that's the break. Traditional conservatives, then you have the neocons, and then you have the Fox News, the Washington Examiner. That's a whole ecosystem that's designed to help propel Trump. So there are different branches within
Different
conservatism.
branches.
There
Right.
always have been.
Yes. It's not monolithic, for sure. And there are branches of it, like you said, that seem to be reverting to Democratic Party roots in some respect.
Definitely.
Interesting. Yeah, and you've written it very well about the neoconservatives. It's very interesting.
The neoconservatives are the most intellectual of the bunch. So they are they have the most trepidation about Trump.
Let's talk about on the Democratic side just for a minute before we venture overseas. We're looking at a New York City mayoral race that is super interesting. I think many Republicans are sitting back and are cheering on this Zohran Mamdani because he is such an extreme figure. He can win maybe in the little ecosphere, not so small actually, of New York City, but nationwide, that trend doesn't look good for the Democrats. Why are not more mainstream Democrats putting some distance between themselves and Mamdani? Several have declined to endorse him, but others have, and not just from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And how do you explain that?
Well, the donor class doesn't like Mamdani.
Right.
However,
they like to win, right?
However, the base of the Democratic Party contends that it's the donor class that propelled Kamala Harris.
Right.
And that it's very similar to the argument that took place in the Republican Party.
Okay.
Where the donor class didn't like Donald Trump.
Right.
Too radical, too loud, too brash.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing people say about Mamdani. My belief is that Trump is not a one-off.
Right.
And that it's logical that in the Democratic Party, you would see a push toward more radical candidates, just as you do in the Republican Party.
Right.
Now, where this all ends is a different question.
Right.
I'm just saying it's a matter, Mamdani is probably going to win that election. He's the most interesting of those candidates. Who really wants to vote for Andrew Cuomo?
Right. Well, people
Eric
who
Adams.
are worried about people who are worried about Mamdani.
Right.
Yeah.
But it'll be my guess is Mamdani will win. Now,
Yes, of
once
course.
he gets into office, all bets are off.
Yeah, and that's a scary proposition for many people, including people who support Israel, because he's been very, that's sort of the core of his message, that he wants to take down support for Israel in the United States, starting in New York City.
Now, there is
I would make a difference between him and Trump, though, because Trump, like it or not, straddles, you mentioned the non-monolithic structure of the Republican Party. He's not an isolationist. Look at his policies. He has support from the isolationists. He's certainly not a neocon. He's certainly not brought those people into the administration, although he did in Trump 1. There were quite a few of the old
Your friend,
neocons.
Elliott Abrams.
Many people were. And so he doesn't stick to one. He wants a big tent. Do you think the Mamdani, the progressives, want a big tent? They don't. It doesn't seem like it.
It seems unlikely. I mean, he would be emboldened.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a comet. The guy came basically out of nowhere.
Yes.
But that's a very American phenomenon too.
Right.
We like Jimmy Carter from Plains, Georgia.
Well, wait a minute. He'd been a governor.
Well, he'd been a governor, but he really.
This guy was a state assemblyman in
But
New
no
York.
one had heard of Carter.
Right. Well, people in Georgia had, but yes, you're right. You're right. He was Southern governor.
Woodrow Wilson. astonishing ascension.
Yes.
From Princeton to the governor of New Jersey
I know.
to president of the United States within years.
Within a couple of years. Yeah.
You as a Princeton alum should know this story well.
I used to, I have 2 degrees from the former Woodrow Wilson School, right?
You worked in the nation's service. Oh, I forgot. Now they call it global service.
Global service, sorry. You have to get your slogans correct. That's true. Well, let's move on to the international scene a bit.
One thing we should say.
Yes.
The Charlie Kirk
Please.
assassination is a horrific event.
Yeah.
Can't be said enough. And I found it ominous.
Yeah, I think we all did. I mean, he was a 31-year-old person. And it does, I will say personally, the rhetoric that has surrounded him no doubt contributed to this climate where people felt, that they could, he deserved assassination. And I hope there's some messaging there.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy talk on social media.
Yeah, people go to extremes and then they wonder why there's political violence and okay.
But there's crazy talk about his assassination too. Too many people on the left claiming that he deserved it. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's just outrageous. Well, thank you for that. Yes, and I do look to you. I mean, you've written 2 really good books. One on the neocon phenomenon, which I think is the best book on that topic. And I assign it to my students in Israel. And then now you've come out with a book on America Last, which is about the America First phenomenon. So you're a great scholar of that. You also know a lot about Europe. We're not going to talk about your detailed understanding of the stereo world. Oh, my Lord. But we are going to talk about Europe. What do you see there? Are they mirroring the U.S. in a populist trend in places, but not universally? I mean, it's hard to characterize. Was it 32 members of the European Union in one? Because they're very different. Malta is not at all like Finland, but yet they're all members of the EU. Nevertheless, there are trends. So, do you see overall a populist trend there?
It's hard to call it a trend at this point. It's definitely, there are definitely signs. I mean, the Polish election is split, right? You have the president and the prime minister from opposing parties.
Right.
Hungary has elections scheduled for April.
Right.
In which Prime Minister Viktor Orban is facing the most difficult election that he has confronted in many years. There is a possibility that he will be ousted from office.
Whoa, that would be big news.
At the same time, in Germany,
yes,
the alternative party for Germany, the AfD, is in some polls neck and neck or slightly ahead of the Christian Democrats, which is the mainstream conservative party.
Right.
And has traditionally been the dominant conservative party.
Right.
So there are, and then we have Nigel Farage in Great Britain.
You met him.
I did. I met him last week. What
was your impression?
He's personally very affable and genial.
Yes.
I don't think that he has the same kind of raging emotional forces that President Trump possesses.
Right.
He's much more British. Let's face it.
It's a different political culture, right?
Yeah, he wants to belong ultimately.
Right. Interesting.
And it is a class system still.
Right.
In Great Britain.
Gosh, yes.
But his Reform Party is wreaking havoc on the Tories.
Yes.
And
they're taking votes away.
Labour, if you trust the polls,
yes,
has lost enormous amounts of popularity. So Labour, it's in their interest. They have another 4 years to cling to power as long as possible.
Right.
Who knows what will happen in that intervening time? It's a long ways off.
Right.
The Tories are going through kind of an existential crisis because Farage is eating away at their support. So yes, there are strong, vigorous populist forces in Europe. Also, you have, interestingly, Spain and Greece appear to be doing better economically than Germany right now. Right. So there's all kinds of turbulence
Right.
And France is in turmoil because they just lost their president, a vote of no confidence. So the prime minister. So we don't know exactly. Europe is very fractured, and then you
Yes.
have Putin sending drones into Poland, which is
Right.
also creating a lot of problems for NATO.
Overnight, that was the other big news. Absolutely. And Poland invoked Article 4 consultations. So NATO remains once again a very serious operation. Speaking of that, let me just ask you a direct question here. Is Ukraine a democracy? We're supposed to believe that. I know that because the media tells us that we need to support it because it's a democracy, an embattled one. No doubt it's been invaded. But are we supporting a democracy in Ukraine, or what kind of country is that?
Yeah, I think we're supporting a democracy. Is it a corrupt country? Is there a lot of corruption there? Sure.
Yes.
Has Zelensky tried to show some backsliding? Yeah, but he had to pull back a month or so ago when they tried to reverse corruption measures. There was an outcry from Europe, and Zelensky had to back down. So there are recidivist impulses in Ukraine.
Recidivism.
We are supporting a...
But here's a data point for you. Freedom House does this on a nonpartisan basis and grades every country on two big categories: political rights, civil liberties. Within each, there are multiple indicia: freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, all the things that we look at when we consider a country democratic and also liberal in the classical sense of having civil liberties. Ukraine is partly free. Its media is not free. It scores 2 out of 4, 4 being the fully free media, and so it's closer to Russia in terms of its political structure and the way freedom operates there than it is to Western Europe. Not surprising, right? It's a former Soviet country. But so, do you get that sense from the media that the place is actually a former Soviet country that in structure-wise is closer to that model than sort of Britain and France? What do you think?
I think the media has been pretty, and this has also translated to the way they fight the war. There's been criticism,
right,
that it's been too close to the old Soviet model in some areas, not in drone technology and so forth.
No,
they do have a multi-party democracy. In Putin, especially since the war now, I mean, look, he's dragging teachers out of classrooms. I mean, I don't think there's any comparison between Ukraine and Russia. I do think Ukraine is a limited democracy. However, as a practitioner of realist foreign policy, let's go one level up.
Okay.
Does it matter whether Ukraine is a democracy or not?
Oh,
actually,
I think
not.
So.
No, it doesn't.
Why not?
Because Mr. Putin is clearly signaling that he has ambitions beyond Ukraine.
Right.
Just as a matter of maintaining what Kissinger would call an equilibrium of power in Europe. You do not want Russia occupying Ukraine and then going on to menace the Baltic states and so forth. During the Cold War, the United States was not particularly choosy about its allies either.
No, of course. Look, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to justify anyone's ambitions to control Ukraine or invade Ukraine or annex parts of it, but I'm just noticing that our popular conception of Ukraine may not be close to the reality.
The United States is not a philanthropist in foreign policy.
No,
look,
no.
There were practical, hard-headed reasons why Harry Truman set up the Marshall Plan and NATO after World War II. You know, people act as though, this was liberal pie-in-the-sky measures or
war against the Soviet Union.
No, we were protecting essentially our sphere of influence. And we genuinely believed in democracy.
No, I agree. No doubt.
And we did not try to push Stalin out of his sphere of influence. That was ratified ultimately at Yalta and then at the Potsdam Accords.
Yeah.
People don't like to talk about this because they want to portray America as purely virtuous. Is not, cannot be.
Well, we rebuilt Western Europe, and its role was to be our close ally.
It's a massive success.
Massive success. I do consider what's happened in the world of concern, right? Because Europe, as a percentage of the world's economy, has declined rapidly. China has risen. The U.S. has stayed very stable there. But we rely on our allies. So when our allies decline, it's less force projection, probably. But speaking of that, let's look again at the Ukraine issue. Explain to me why, after 2.5 years of war, more 3 years now that Russia has invaded Ukraine, why is Western Europe still reliant on Russian natural gas for its winter heating fuel? Isn't that a contradiction? Aren't they, if it really is being threatened by Russia, why haven't they found alternative sources to replace Russian fuel?
They must and can.
But they haven't. And Germany is the number, your friends in Germany have to explain.
They have been building new LNG ports.
Right.
And the U.S. is exporting more.
Right.
Trump is correct in putting more pressure on them on this issue. The
Absolutely,
problem is you
right?
still have this vestigial belief in ties with Russia.
Yeah. You talk a lot about vestigial, recidivist, but that's the reality, isn't it? I mean, also Germany, the world's third largest economy now, right? They overtook in the last year Japan, amazingly, to be number 3, and they do it based on exports. They still export a lot of stuff to Russia. Those
secretly,
trade.
I think.
Yes, they do. And so how are we to react? I mean, they want us to be involved, and we're being called upon, and we are NATO allies to, of course, support Poland, but also to be, if you read all the press, we're supposed to be increasing our defense support for Ukraine, which I get. But don't they have a role?
They do.
Yeah. How do you explain? I mean, when you talk to Germans, how do they explain their seemingly contradictory, maybe hypocritical positions on this?
There's some hypocrisy, and then there's also what we see in Japan, which is a good chunk of the population has internalized the lessons of World War II, perhaps all too well.
What do you mean by that?
They do not believe in conflict and confrontation abroad.
Okay.
They want to appease.
Really?
Yeah, they want to avoid
conflict.
They want to avoid conflict. The Bundeswehr, the German army,
yes,
barely exists.
I know.
There's something called the Bundeswehr.
Yeah.
Is it an actual fighting force? It does not appear to be. The Germans, they're trying to turn that around. There's the Chancellor,
what's his name, talks
Friedrich
a big game.
Merz,
yeah,
and then the Defense Minister Boris Pistorius
yes.
have devised a plan to try and turn this around. It takes years, of course.
Right.
Who would have thought that the Germans
wouldn't have a good army?
Would be.
Do you blame the saintly, center right, maybe Saint Angelica Merkel for this?
Well,
she was chancellor for how many years?
Merkel is more of, she was over 20 years, I think, or almost 20. She was an expression of German society. She perfectly personified what the bulk of society wanted, which was to become Switzerland.
Right.
I'm not that hard on her because...
Why not?
I don't think she would have been able to do that much.
That's one of those what if.
You're dealing with a society that needed to be poked and prodded by outside events.
So maybe the reality is we should allow Russia to control that part of Europe.
Well, once that happens, the problem is there's no going back. It's not like taking a cookie away from a child one day and then returning it the next.
Okay, fair enough. And
the geopolitics is,
So they're basically continuing to be free riders, is what you're saying?
No, they are changing.
Okay.
They're investing $1 billion in the army extra.
Yes.
There is a tone shift in the country. Let's see if it really lasts, if it turns into something concrete. I can tell you the alternative party for Germany is pro-Putin. They are against Ukraine. Right. They would let, in the name of realism, let Putin gobble up Ukraine and wash their hands of the problem.
Right. It's interesting because,
Because
The
they're
Polish
based in
wouldn't.
East Germany, and strangely enough,
Yes.
it boggles the mind, but these East Germans, former East Germans who were occupied by the Soviets,
Right.
now feel some kind of nostalgia
Really?
for it all.
Ah.
Safe, secure life, and they feel more sympathetic to Russia.
Really?
And that's manifesting itself.
Maybe that's just a reaction to the establishment
It is.
views rather
Yeah.
than a true.
No, it's both. It's
Okay.
both.
It's both.
They
Interesting.
hate the West Germans.
Really? Why?
It's like a north-south divide.
Okay.
They feel like they were occupied after 1989.
Were they?
Yes, but they benefited from it.
Okay.
But a lot of them did
It
lose
was
their
benign.
jobs. It's a double-edged sword, Everything's new in East Germany, new and shiny.
I know.
But unemployment is high. Still.
Yeah, yeah. What is the coming trend, do you think, in Europe? Populism has been talked about now for many years. We're probably going to see the Le Pen force in France, if you see the polls. But maybe, like you said, maybe washing backwards in places like Hungary. What's the coming trend there?
I don't know if there is a trend. If Orban goes down, that'll be a bombshell.
Yes.
Because he has been the galvanizing figure in the European Union, in Brussels, for these forces. I mean, you also have Robert Fico in power in Slovakia. But everything, I think it all clusters around Orban. And Orban is very close to Trump, too. I think
Right.
Trump will do everything in his power to try and ensure Orban's reelection, either visit Hungary shortly before the April elections, definitely have Orban in a visit to the White House to show that he has good relations and access
Right.
with the Trump
Which he does.
administration. He does.
And the U.S. may have NATO put a new base in Hungary, right? That would be an economic boon to the country. Yeah.
Definitely. Though the Russians would go crazy if we did that.
Yeah, well, good luck to the Russians. One last question. We have the president on his way to Britain soon for a state visit. That usually has, meeting with the king and all the British still do that better than just about anyone else, the protocol side of these state visits. But there's a substance side too. And we saw when J.D. Vance, the vice president, went to the Munich Security Conference, he gave a very tough message to the Europeans, which they didn't like to hear, many of them. What do you think of the message Trump will take? Will it be a J.D. Vance type message, or will he be the anti-Mamdani and take a more statesman-like position?
I think he will be more statesmanlike. That's what he's been like before.
Right.
He loves those visits, the
Yes.
pomp and ceremony
Right,
of going to Great Britain.
right.
There's no incentive for him to rock the boat. He has a good relationship with Starmer too.
Does he? Yeah.
Yes.
That's interesting,
I mean,
isn't it?
it's not a close personal bond, but
No.
he does respect him. Starmer has, tried to curry favor
Yes,
and
he
been very
has.
conciliatory with Trump. So that has worked to his benefit, and it's worked to Great Britain's benefit in terms of a trade deal
Yes.
with the United States as well. I think that, look, J.D. Vance, the vice president, traditionally for any administration, is the attack dog.
Right.
I see Vance as the Nixon
Right.
in this, with
In the
Trump
Eisenhower administration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Vance goes over there, he delivers. There's no way that
The
Trump is gonna lash into his hosts when he's in Great Britain. They're already they're not members of the EU.
Right.
He'll meet with Farage. He likes Farage.
Yes.
But
he will meet with them.
I think he probably would. Why not?
Well, I mean, he is minor party in the current. I don't know how many seats he has.
he's Farage, when he was here last week, immediately went to the White House that afternoon.
Okay.
He saw Trump.
Okay.
Those guys are tight.
Okay.
I mean, I would be surprised if Trump did not
Okay.
see Farage.
Amazing.
But who knows how the visit will be structured.
Right.
But definitely the high point for Trump is visiting King Charles.
Yes.
And King Charles does play kind of a political role in
Wow.
Great Britain, always has.
Yes.
And he does have influence with Trump. Isn't
that interesting? Yeah. Well, I really always love your insights, both on American politics, European politics, the world of journalism that you know so well, and the world of Washington, the commentariat. Your insightfulness is helping the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune move forward, as always. And thank you very much.